Breaking tonight, new challenges to President Trump's travel ban 1 week to the day after the controversial executive order was issued. Welcome to a town hall edition of the first 100 days, everyone. I'm Martha MacCallum. So for the past week, we have witnessed political fireworks, protests, and now legal maneuvering over the president's executive order that temporarily restricts entry into the United States from 7 Muslim-majority nations. The president and his supporters argue that this is a matter of national security. Detractors say that it flies in the face of American ideals and the U.S. Constitution. So tonight we look to separate fact from fiction, and in moments we'll be joined by a powerful panel representing all sides of this hot button issue. But we begin with Trace Gallagher reporting from our West Coast newsroom on how we got here. Good evening, Trace.
Good evening, Martha. The executive order was the result of extreme vetting President Trump promised during the campaign. It barred nearly all travelers except U.S. citizens from Iraq, Syria, Sudan, Iran, Somalia, Libya, and Yemen. It also suspended the refugee program for 120 days to give the Department of Homeland Security a chance to review screening procedures. But there were questions as to how much guidance Homeland Security and the Department of Justice were given about how to implement the order. Even many who support the intent of the order criticize the rollout and the chaotic aftermath. Because when the order was signed, some visa holders and refugees were already flying to the U.S. Upon arrival, they were detained and in some cases turned around. Listen.
They just had no time to prepare. So you're getting on these flights thinking that, you know, when you go to America with a valid visa, you're going to be able to get through, and then you can't.
We are a group of attorneys, translators, and other volunteers. We represent over 10 nonprofit organizations and 10 private firms.
And while pro bono attorneys showed up at airports across the country, so did protesters by the thousands. Watch.
I think the president is attempting to divide us, and I think we are, and the people here, especially who came to the airport to protest and to stand up for these people, are saying we're not going to be defined by that.
The White House began pushing back, with the president saying that if he'd announced the ban ahead of time, he would have tipped off, quote, a lot of bad dudes out there. That in turn prompted criticism of Trump's use of the word ban. The president responded by tweeting, quote, call it what you want. It's about keeping bad people with bad intentions out of the country. But the White House then said this, watch.
That's not a ban. What it is to make sure that the people who are coming in are vetted properly from 7 countries that were identified by the Obama administration. A ban would mean people can't get in. We've clearly seen hundreds of thousands of people come into our country from other countries.
We should note federal judges in New York and Washington state issued emergency stays preventing travelers from being sent back to their home countries. And yesterday, an Iranian man who'd been sent home became the first person allowed to return to the U.S. following a federal judge's ruling. Martha.
Thank you very much, Trace. So let's bring in our panel, a group of lawyers, veterans, civil rights advocates, law enforcement, political strategists, and everyday Americans who feel very strongly for or very strongly against President Trump's executive order. So let's bring everyone in. Good to have you all with us today. Thank you very much for being here. I want to start with James Pesci in the back row there. You are a veteran of the Iraq and Afghanistan war. Your personal feelings when you heard about this executive order and how you think it's going so far.
So when I first heard about it, you know, what I thought was the ability that the president's giving Homeland Security and the appropriate different departments the chance to take some time and to think about what's actually taking place. Well, you know, what's going on? Who are they letting in? What are the review standards? Who are the agencies involved? How we're doing it and why we're doing it. When I saw that, it was great. I was like, okay, well, this is a good chance for us to take a pregnant pause and to see what's going on. When I started to look, so I do analytics, social analytics. I went and looked at who is really driving the conversation. There's a lot of left-leaning publications and media outlets that are driving this news in a completely downward spiral, that this is some kind of like bad, negative connotation towards the people. And it's not that. It's about protecting the Americans and protecting us and our ability to be able to, move forward and go forward.
It's such a great point, because part of this is what the words actually say and how it's enacted, but the other part of it is how it's perceived. And that's a very powerful thing. And everybody's nodding that that's such a huge part of this. David Tafoya, let me go to you, former Obama administration. I know you're very much against this. You know, does it make sense legally, and does it carry forward in a way that makes us safer? That's the big issue here.
I don't think that the executive order was drafted in a way that will make us safer. The reason is that it bans people from 7 countries, but those 7 countries have not been a source of the people who have come here and attacked us. None of those countries have been the place where people came from. The attackers in San Bernardino, the attackers in Orlando, and the New Jersey, New York bombings, those people didn't come from any of those 7 countries. So it's not well calculated. The purpose can't possibly be to protect us better, because if that was the purpose, they would have picked the countries that sourced those people. I think it was an effort to make an announcement to the world that we are going to be tougher on Muslims in general. The problem with that is that's not well calculated with our overall strategy in the Middle East, which, number one, the priority should be to defeat ISIS. I was in Iraq last month. Things are finally going pretty well in the war against ISIS. We have ISIS on their heels in Mosul, and we have Iraqis who are working closely with us, who are risking their lives to fight ISIS. Think about the message it sends to those Iraqis. Moreover, it cuts off the refugee resettlement program, which is one way that we are able to reward the Iraqis who serve as interpreters for our U.S. military and who risk their lives to do that, and allows them to come over here so they're safe when their lives are in danger.
I mean, the issue of Iraq and how Iraq is dealt with in this is something that people feel very strongly about. And Carl, you also served, Carl Higbee, in Iraq. You lost friends there. You worked with interpreters, no doubt. You worked with people in Iraq who were there to help. And the feeling is that they feel slighted by this, that they're not sort of embraced in this. Is that true or not?
No, and the thing is there's many interpreters who do feel that way, but there's many who don't, like such as Johnny Walker, who's been out on this program with you. And to the issue of the fact that we're finally beating back ISIS, we're not. Geographically, they're shrinking in Iraq and Syria and places like that. But the problem is they've metastasized now to 20 or 30 different countries, and that's the fundamental misunderstanding with people who worked with the Obama administration that think that we're winning the war against ISIS. We are fundamentally not. And anybody who says we are should obviously take a look at the global prospects of this thing. And this Syrian refugee thing that we've stopped along with 6 other countries, we have to acknowledge the fact that, like Iran and places like that, while some of these attackers didn't come from Iran, they are the largest world state sponsor of terror. So yes, this is a start, much like Obamacare. Nothing was perfect when they rolled it out. It's not perfect now anyway, but they made changes as they go along. Same with this. This is a 120-day moratorium. Things will be changed down the line, and they will be added and taken off and improved. But this is a start to protect the United States of America.
So raise your hand if you think that the rollout of this went well. 1, 2. Joe, tell me why.
I think it depends on who you're talking to, whether it went well or not. I think it went according to Trump's idea. Look, I've been in business, and I've seen that at times you get things out there to get it rolling, sort of what Carl just said. If you wait till everything's perfect, it'll never happen. You'll go in circles. Donald Trump was bold, put it out there. He knows it's not perfect. He knows it's going to adjust, but it's there. And now he's on the offensive, and everyone is reacting to him, which is the way we want it.
So someone who believes that it didn't go well, what damage do you think was potentially caused by that, Darren?
Well, it caused an isolation effect. You have people coming from different countries, and they feel a level of isolationism. But just going back to the countries that were placed on this ban, why wasn't Belgium placed on this list? We see strictly Muslim countries. However, when I look at Belgium, they have one of the worst vetting processes out there. And when we take in consideration, as Carl mentioned, with the Iraqi interpreters, we're training Iraqi fighter pilots in Arizona as we speak. And so that provides more of an isolationist theory from us as Americans, and we need to embrace the Iraqis as allies.
Who thinks that this ban could potentially stir up more hostility, more violence towards our country? Qasim Rashid, please.
Well, it will stir more hostility because it's sending a very wrong message. You have someone like Rudy Giuliani saying that the president called me and said, make it a Muslim ban and make it look legal. Now, whatever he meant to say, what came out is we're trying to legitimize bigotry against Muslims. What we have with us right now is a suspension of people from 7 countries that have never harmed us. We had a horrible situation in Canada where 6 Muslims were murdered by a white supremacist, and the president didn't even bother calling it terrorism or acknowledge the fact that it's white supremacy. And now we're compounding that with the president removing the federal surveillance on white supremacy organizations altogether, who, by the way, the FBI has acknowledged and admitted is the single biggest terror threat to America, more than ISIS. So the message that's being sent is that white supremacy terrorism is okay, and we're going to let it flourish, and we're going to target Muslims, even though the FBI tells us that the greater threat is white supremacy. And that is going to allow us to be more vulnerable. The FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
What, under Obama?
Yeah. So now the FBI isn't legitimate because it was under Obama. I mean, these alternative facts simply don't work.
Well,
you have Kellyanne Conway citing a massacre that didn't exist.
Well, she has since amended her answer on that and said that she meant to refer to it as a plot that was in the works, and those people were sent back. But Diane, go ahead. Did you want to respond?
People are forgetting. Was this not the same list of countries that Barack Obama had listed? And so why is it now that it's about isolationism and white supremacy? No, we have to understand that we have sovereignty in this country. We have a right to protect that. We had intelligence officers that in a hearing in front of Congress said, we cannot vet these people. We do not know who they are. They have no documentation. They come out of the woodwork. They don't know who they are. Why should we put ourselves in danger? Have a resettlement camp. We could do things like that in more Muslim majority regions where they'll be more comfortable themselves. We're not trying to ban Muslims. There's many countries that were not on this list that's paused. So that's nonsense.
All right, we got a lot of people who want to chime in, but we're going to take a quick break. And I promise we're going to get to all of you. Still ahead, protests have erupted across the nation in response to the immigration executive order, many describing it as a, quote, Muslim ban, which you just heard in this room. Is that fair? Is that what this is? Up next, our panel will discuss. We'll be right back.
This is a temporary pause that allows us to better review the existing refugee and visa vetting system.
President Trump's executive order on immigration has dominated the news cycle, and it may have something to do with charged headlines like these. Slate magazine wrote, quote, "Of course it's a Muslim ban." Rolling Stone said Donald Trump's Muslim ban makes us less American. And Vox wrote this, quote, "Trump's Muslim ban is a huge gift to ISIS." So is that designation fair? The administration says unequivocally no.
When he first announced it, he said Muslim ban. He called me up. He said, put a commission together, show me the right way to do it legally. And what we did was we focused on, instead of religion, danger. The areas of the world that create danger for us, which is a factual basis, not a religious basis.
This is not, I repeat, not a ban on Muslims.
Clearly, it's not a Muslim ban. It's not in any way associated with religion.
All right, so let's get back to our panel to discuss this. You just heard all of those quotes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I know Darren wants to pounce on what Diane just said a little while ago, but the fact is, we had 8 years of an Obama administration who was pretending that there was zero problems with regard to Islamic terrorism, problems in the Middle East. He completely turned a blind eye to it. Now, people might have some issues with the nuances or the machinations that are going on regarding President Trump's new immigration policy, but at least he's actually trying to do something. He's actually addressing a real problem, and it's a serious problem.
I actually totally disagree with my neighbor over here. Yeah, totally disagree with my buddy over here. You see, you got to understand one thing. First of all, President Obama never turned a blind eye to the Middle East. Okay, Yemen came in during the time of President Obama.
He never gave it a critical look, though, either.
He gave a critical look.
He did not give it a critical look.
He tried to do whatever he can do. The challenge over here is you're labeling it. You're labeling it. Not only are you labeling it, but you're also...
you have the floor right now. Go ahead.
Not only are you labeling this, but you're also saying, oh, but the Christians are allowed. And this has been said, but the Christians are allowed. These are refugees. These people their countries have been bombed, right? Your country, thank God, our country has not been bombed. All right, these people need to get out. They need a refuge. And
I guess one of the issues that's raised by that, though, and I want people to weigh in on this. Hold on one second. Is why we didn't help after the red line was crossed, right? We weren't. Now there's all this need for compassion for these individuals, but yet when they were crying out to us, as you say, and being killed by the hundreds of thousands in their countries, we did not really do as much as we could have to help, some would say.
But the fact is, if you look at a lot of these countries over there, let's talk about Syria specifically. They've had the civil war going on now for, quite some time, almost 5 years. The Christians were the ones that are being probably the most persecuted there in that country. They've been driven out of their homes by ISIS. All the minority groups there had been pushed out, bullied, attacked by ISIS and other groups, fundamentalist groups over there. I don't have a problem if we decide to bring Christians from Syria over here to the United States.
I'm sorry, I disagree completely, because the biggest people that are subject to terror by ISIS are Muslims, and they are victims of terrorism.
Well, and any victim, sheer numbers versus percentages.
No, I'm talking about worldwide. Muslims have been killed more and attacked more by ISIS than any other group, and they deserve a right in this country to seek refuge from terrorism, and that's what America.
No,
hold
on. It is.
I wouldn't doubt.
Hold on. It is.
All right. I mean, that raises the question. Then why wouldn't Muslims want to have the greatest protection of our borders, so that we can make sure that anybody who does, want to cause harm is not able to get in to hurt more Muslims?
I agree with you on that, but I think the thing is that our vetting process is very, very concise and very, very thorough. If you are a refugee, everything that you go under for the 2-year process of being vetted, that alone has proven to be a wonderful model. Not to mention, no refugee has ever struck back here in America against Americans.
Peter, go ahead, Peter.
I disagree with her. The question over here is as to whether the president has the constitutional power to temporarily suspend immigration to the United States. And if you go back to the 1952 Act, Immigration Nationality Act, the Congress specifically authorizes the president to do exactly what he's doing if there's a national security concern. I came to the United States as a refugee myself with my family. We were vetted properly. We submitted to fingerprints and background investigation and blood tests and you name it. We needed America. America didn't need us as refugees. We needed America. We want this nation to remain as safe as possible. What the president is doing right now is what President Carter did in 1979 with the Iranian crisis, when we had the hostage crisis. President Obama did the exact same thing in 2011 when we had two refugees from Iraq. We had 2 refugees who were investigated by the FBI that they had blood on their hands when they killed Americans in Iraq, and they were arrested here.
Jessica, go ahead.
I absolutely hear what you're saying. This is a narrative coming out of the right wing at this moment that this is exactly what Obama did in 2011. There were 2 Iraqi refugees who were building a bomb in Kentucky, Bowling Green. Not a massacre, though. But what happened was we had to slow down. There was not 1 month where the U.S. stopped taking Iraqi refugees. The process was slowed down, but it was not halted.
Well, Martha,
absolutely not. And the intention.
The question is,
I got a question over here for him.
Is it inhumane to ask people to wait 90 days? Is that an unreasonable thing to ask for?
My question.
What we're seeing is a shift in our thinking. Since 9/11, we've been reactive in our approach to national security. His rolling out wasn't necessarily very smooth, but it's proactive, and we need to change our thinking. I think proactive is the way to approach terror. He is taking proactive steps, and I think that that's important.
So, Martha,
yes.
Go ahead, quickly, and last thought, then we're going to come right back.
Stepping back, leadership matters. Leadership in the Muslim world matters as well. Right now, the narrative on Islam is defined by Daesh and ISIS. I want to look at proven models versus shallow theories on how to address this. As a Muslim, I want to keep America safe. I thank Carl and others for the service that they've given, but we've got to look at proven models. Proven models like the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, where he's a worldwide leader. His Holiness Mirza Masroor Ahmad has led people in 206 nations with 0 acts of terrorism. So in order to keep America safe, and he has said, let me tell you what he said, a Muslim leader, He said our mosques are open. Transparency is important to trust, and opening up and living in a democracy. So I think if we understand Islam, if we truly, as Americans, understand what true Islam is versus these shallow theories and this misinterpretation, we will be able to keep America safe. And that's the conversation I want to have.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Still ahead, President Trump's executive order producing widespread outrage. But on the other side of the break, we're going to show you what some of President Obama's top intelligence officers said about vetting refugees and the need to do that over the past few years.
I don't obviously put it past the likes of ISIL to infiltrate operatives among these refugees. So that is a huge concern of ours.
So President Trump and his top officials have often brought up the issue of safeguarding America as the main motivator behind the order that was signed on January 27th. But they are not unique in that belief. Top intelligence officials from the Obama administration routinely warned of the issues with vetting refugees, especially as it related to terror-rich nations. Watch this.
I don't obviously put it past the likes of ISIL to infiltrate operatives among these refugees. So that is a huge concern of ours.
I agree with the assessments that have been expressed here earlier that this is a population of people that we're not going to know a whole lot about necessarily coming from Syria.
We did discover in people who had come in as refugees from Iraq a number of people who were of serious concern, including two that were charged when we found their fingerprints on improvised explosive devices from Iraq. And there's no doubt that that was the product of a less than excellent vetting.
ISIL has a large cadre of Western fighters who could potentially serve as operatives for attacks in the West. And the group is probably exploring a variety of means for infiltrating operatives into the West, including in refugee flows.
Some powerful comments there. So we're back with our panel to discuss. So the issue that's raised here is it that different in terms of what the Trump administration wants to do and what their concerns are, and what the Obama administration wanted to do and what their concerns are? Raheel.
Yes, I feel that we are holding President Trump up to a different standard from any other world leader. And this is the mass hysteria that has been orchestrated by the anti-Trump movement, which has totally deflected from the real issue that as a democratically elected leader of this country, he has the right to implement policies about the long-term safety and security. The radical jihadist ideology that is at play is well known to everyone. It's not something that we can hide our heads under the sand like President Obama did for 8 years. And appeasement was his problem. President Trump doesn't have to be appease people. He has to implement the policies that will be for the benefit of both American Muslims and non-Muslims and the whole country.
Both sides are massively inflating the threat of terrorism. When you're a child and you see a random murder occur on television, your parents go to you and say, but the threat is so small. And yet what they do not tell you, what American parents are not telling their children, apparently, is that the threat of terrorism is 300 times or 3,000 times less than the threat of being murdered on a street.
We're going to go to the front row here to Tiara and Patience, who experienced this firsthand in a bathroom in Orlando.
See, the problem is that I see a lot of people, don't get me wrong, the statistics actually backs a lot of this up. However, looking at it as in, like, what I went through, this man was nowhere near from any of those countries listed on that list, or any other country from over there, wherever the case may be.
He was born here in New York.
He was born right here in New York as we sit in these chairs. So my issue is that what do we do? What do we protect us from here? We are our own threat. We are our own threat. Like what? I've never heard of somebody actually coming from overseas to really harm us. Like we've never had that problem, at least not as long as the 21 years that I've been sitting here in this chair and living.
The only thing that this executive order does is create anti-American sentiments in the Middle East in places where there haven't even been major. They hate us already, but we're increasing that. We're increasing that. The way that the executive order was implemented, it wasn't the right way. It wasn't the right way.
90 days.
We can debate that. We can debate that. That's fair.
What can we do after 90 days?
The reality is, look, we're trying to say, you know what, 109,000 or whether it's 109 people or whatever it is, whatever the true number is all that matters. The reality is we have 300 million Americans that he's trying to protect. Some people are going to get hurt in this process. That's a reality. And the military fights for everybody, and so does Trump. That's the reality. That is his job. Hold on.
That is your perception.
No, hold on one second.
Sergeant Bartlett, you have the floor.
Hold on 1 second here. So the reality is this: is that you got people who are going over and fighting these wars, who spend years away from their family. They spend a few months being held up in some process to be vetted. It's not a big deal. It's better than being blown up where they're at because we care about that country.
Absolutely, and I respect every single person who serves for our country. I thank them until the end of time.
Good.
I'm curious about when this ban or whatever we're calling it came out, there were visa holders who weren't allowed in. We've heard now it's over 100,000 visa holders, green card holders. We have
There's 300 million.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You got 100,000.
But
How many military members are away from their family for years?
Let's go to Imam Hamad.
This completely makes
For
sense.
extreme vetting, refugees, making sure our country is safe. But when you do it like this, you demonize an entire religion of people, but terrorism has no religion. When I was in Uganda, terrorism has no religion. When I was in Uganda, I lived there for 6 months. There was a Christian-based terrorist organization called Lord's Resistance Army. They were raping, killing, maiming Muslims in the name of Christ, but we did not talk about them like this. So you have to have the same standard. Terrorism has no religion.
It is a myth
The
to
Messiah.
think. It is a myth to think
We're
that
supposed
this
to
is.
be as humble as being a Muslim.
No, it is a
And
myth
so
to think.
it doesn't really
It's a
make
myth.
sense.
It's a myth to think.
Active investigations, terror investigations in every single state right now as we speak, right here in the United States. We're not saying ban Muslims, pick on Muslims. We're all Americans. We have to
Hold on. Darren, you go ahead. And then I'm going to go to Oscar.
First of all,
hold on 1 second, Tiara.
First of all, it's here we go.
All right,
First
guys,
of all,
hang on.
First of all, it is un-American. Okay, I got it.
Hold on a minute, you guys. Hold on.
First of all, it is un-American
ladies,
to
1 second.
discriminate
All right, just 1
against
minute.
anybody.
Let's go over here.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
First of all, it's un-American to discriminate against anyone based on race, religion, or anything like that. I'm a veteran and also a retired law enforcement officer. When somebody made a comment before about the intelligence community, a lot of people don't know that what type of information they have, and it's a lot more than what we think. I was in the intelligence community, and I heard things and found out things that the public would cringe if they heard the certain things that were taking place. Now, the execution of it, the rollout may have been bad, but if you look throughout history, the executive orders have been given out since Washington. Some of the orders that may have shocked the conscience was also Abraham Lincoln, when he gave out the executive order about the Emancipation Proclamation, Truman, when he gave out the executive order regarding the desegregation of the troops, Eisenhower when he gave out the ones desegregating the school. So sometimes we shock the conscience, but the thing is, this gives an opportunity for both sides of the aisle for these 120 days to look at this, to see if the vetting process has changed. What happened yesterday may not be the same today when it comes to the intelligence community. So just because something wasn't happening you thought a few days ago, today it may be something new. And the thing is this, is that if I have this information, I'm not going to get on TV and say, you know what, I'm going to do this because the latest intelligence says that we have these type of threats. So certain times the intelligence community, we can't tell everybody everything that we know because it's going to be an issue. And the thing is this, is like I said, and I'll let go of the mic. The thing is this, is that discrimination against anyone is wrong. Discrimination, I'm not talking about discrimination. And the thing is, I agree, because it is, right, the thing is this, is that it's 120 days.
Okay. We gotta go. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. But hold on. Up next, President Trump's controversial executive order sparking massive protests in airports and cities across the nation. So is the order constitutional? That is the question that arrived in courts across the nation earlier today. We're going to provide you with both sides of the legal debate straight ahead so that you know what you think about this at home. You can decide. We'll be right back. President Trump's executive order on immigration prompted a legal showdown in the week since its signature. The fight over the constitutionality of this move has played out in courtrooms across the land. Just this morning, new hearings taking place in Massachusetts and in Virginia. So the fight continues to provoke strong feelings on both sides of the debate, obviously, as you've seen here tonight. Here are renowned constitutional professor Jonathan Torley and Carol Rose, executive director of the ACLU. Watch.
This order violates the First Amendment, religious freedom. This order violates the First Amendment's protection for free speech and right to petition the government. This order violates the Equal Protection Clause and the Due Process Clause of the Constitution, and it's a clear abuse of power and must be pushed back.
I think the odds are in his favor. This is not a Muslim ban. A court is not going to read into it that this is a religious test because it excludes most of these other countries.
So back now with our panel. So hold on, we're going to go to the lawyers first here, folks. And I haven't heard from Richard Roth. Richard, welcome. Is it or is it not constitutional?
It's a very interesting issue. It may very well be constitutional. There's three issues. One is whether it's constitutional. Two is whether it's defined by the statute. And three is whether the procedure worked. The process aside, it may very well be constitutional. You give tremendous latitude to the executive branch in any of their orders, and it is very hard for a federal court judge, in light of our separation of powers and our three divisions of our legislature, our Congress, and our executive branch, to actually determine that an act by the president, which was done to protect, as it said, to protect the citizens, is unconstitutional. So I'm going to bet on the side of it being constitutional, but it is a close call, especially in light of the way it was done.
Michael.
I do believe fundamentally the president is a patriot, and as an immigration lawyer, I know the gaps and the gaffes when it comes to vetting. But the 1965 amendment to the 1952 Immigration Act clearly prohibits the president and Congress from using national origin as a measure of discrimination. It's as if the president took 7 people, beat them up with the prayer that Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and the 11 million plus people that we have in our backyard are now going to act differently.
Okay, then why did that not prevent President Obama, when he took a pause from bringing in people from Iraq, or President Carter in the 70s when he took the same action against Iran?
So what happens here is a vacuum has been created, Martha, by the deafening silence in Washington. The plenary power, I'm an immigration law professor also, is vested within Congress to make laws. The president is using his discretion for our safety, mind you, to enforce the laws, just like President Obama did deferred action and used executive orders in that fashion. Congress did not give the president the authority to discriminate.
Non-U.S. people are not covered under the Constitution. These people are not Americans. They're not covered under the United States Constitution.
Amended the 1952 Act.
And it's not national security. He has the right as an executive.
How do you make an argument that people not in this country are covered under the Constitution?
Michael, and you and I see each other in court once in a while, but the truth is that 1952, Congress made it clear explicitly that the President of the United States has the power to allow someone to come to the United States or disallow someone, a group of people, a class of people, if they are deemed to be a threat to the national security.
If there's a War Powers Act, if there's a declaration of war by Congress, the president can take action.
You cannot discriminate based on race or religion, which is fine. But it is a temporary.
People forget that it was an executive order. People forget that it was an executive order that took 100,000 Japanese and put them in concentration camps. 40,000 of them were U.S. citizens. So we can't just say it was an executive order, therefore it must be done. In 1939, this is the last point I'll make.
Shireen, you've been waiting to get in here. Let's give you a chance.
We turned away 1,000 Jews, a third of them died in the Holocaust. We can't say never again and then repeat that.
Thank you. If your belief system advocates for treating women like property, if your belief system allows you to kill, hold on, let me finish. If your belief system allows you to kill, let me finish. If your belief system allows you to kill homosexuals, then that belief system has no place in the civilized world. And that belief system that all Americans need to unite against is radical Islam. I'm an American Muslim. Exactly. We're banning radical Islam.
Okay, but what you're talking about in terms of some of the tenets of Sharia and some of the things that we have seen happen in some of these Muslim countries is the essence of what the president is trying to protect against. He's saying if you want to come to this country, you have to respect the laws of the United States of America and the basic values. And that is something that has been integration since the beginning of time.
When did we start conferring constitutional rights on non-U.S. people?
I want to go to the back corner here. Dr. Kashif Sharadi.
Yeah, I just want to answer that question before I come to my main point. If anyone, anywhere in the world, believes in killing homosexuals, killing apostates, killing blasphemers, I completely agree with Shireen that they should be banned from this country. However, saying that my faith believes in these things is completely atrocious. Islam is against all these things. Islam stands for universal freedom of conscience and freedom of religion. See, this whole debate is very personal to me.
Shireen, can you let him go ahead?
This
Finish
whole
your
talk
thoughts,
about refugee ban and about religious extremism is very personal to me. I'm someone who sought refuge in the United States 8 years ago, escaping religious extremism and oppression in Pakistan. I'm a Muslim myself. And my Muslim community is persecuted there. I came here, I'm now a cardiologist. I spend my days saving American lives, day in and day out.
And you feel that the language, absolutely, and you feel that the language of this insults everyone in your religion.
Exactly. I mean, saying that. I mean, look. If you're banning,
somebody like Linda Sarsour, who lives in my neighborhood, and that woman, born in America, tweeting pro-Sharia law tweets. You had on the other night. It was a fantastic interview with Ms. Hirsi Ali. That woman, Sarsour, she's attacking women, saying that they don't deserve to be women. They should have that. She wished she could take their vaginas away.
But she does not represent the entire religion that she's speaking about. All right, do we have to take a break? All right, hold on, guys. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear what our panel thinks when we come back, guys, of the government officials attempting to undermine the president by refusing his executive order when we come back. We're back with our panel for one last segment. We've been discussing this travel ban, whatever you want to call it, that excludes people from 7 countries. And it obviously brings up a lot of emotions. And one of them is this, what you were just talking about, the feeling that it represents or is against all Muslims. And I think that's one of the most serious things that we have to deal with here, because I think that the order is designed to protect us from violence coming across our borders. Carl, you wanted to say something about that.
Yeah, I think that one of the big things that's not being looked at here is the fact that if you are not a green card holder, if you're not a citizen, if you're not here in the United States, the Constitution does not apply to you. And I don't care what lawyer says what. That's the truth. So when you have all these people saying that, oh, they're constitutionally infringing on somebody's rights, some person in another country who we don't know who they are because that 2-year background check has nothing to check it against. We don't want them here. It does not help the United States to bring people we don't know here.
So the underlying issue comes back to people.
Equal. Not all passport holders, not all green card holders.
The underlying issue, Martha, the underlying issue that comes out in this.
Hold on, guys, because no one's going to hear what you're saying. So hold on, right here, quickly.
Martha, what you're seeing in this room and across the country is the underlying issue is about Islam and the understanding of Islam. People are getting their information from fake news, from alternative facts. When you come back to real Islam, when you understand Islam,
I understand what you're saying, but hold on.
That's what we're talking about.
American Muslims are loyal to the country of residence as a part
I'm going to go right
faith.
over here to John.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was a lieutenant in the NYPD. I responded to on 9/11 to the World Trade Center. I was also a lieutenant in the NYPD and responded to Times Square with the Fazad attempted car bombing. I'm an ex-Army officer, but at the same token, although I was upset with those situations, I do understand that we have an incompetent society and we need to respect people. We have these borders that need to be fortified on the north and the south. I don't agree with a lot of the things that Donald Trump is looking to do, but at the same token, ultimately, he's trying to keep us safe. So we need to give him a chance.
Because I think what's happening, and to a certain extent here from this administration, is that they're trying to send a signal. And the signal is that if you wish this country harm, we're going to make it a lot more difficult for you to get in here. Is that a fair statement? Go ahead.
I don't think this is. So the thing is, I think this is counterproductive because the fact is the refugees who we're banning from this country are the biggest victims of terrorism. I see this like banning Germans after World War II and saying because there's a Nazi party in Germany, we're going to ban all Germans.
No one is being, this is a pause, right? So you have to go through a more stringent vetting process to get into the country.
I understand, but there already is an extreme vetting process.
I mean,
it takes 48 months for someone to come to the United States.
So, I mean, one of the questions is, does every country have the right to say, let's just take a moment and make sure that we're doing this properly? Go ahead.
Other countries have done that. So why is he held up to a different standard? Every country decides who can come in, who can't come in. There are 16, let me finish. There are 16 Muslim countries that don't allow Jews or Israelis to enter. Do we ever talk about that? It's not a ban. It's not on Muslims. It's not on religion. It's about religion.
Let's give Joe Connor a moment here. Joe, go ahead. Joe Connor, look, you have the floor.
My father was killed by terrorists. They were not Muslim terrorists. They were Catholic. They were Puerto Rican terrorists. My cousin was killed by terrorists in the World Trade Center, his godson. This war is to protect America, regardless of who the terrorists are, regardless of where they're from. The goal of this government, the first priority of this government, is to protect everyone in this room. And if the way to do it is by banning or stopping certain people from coming in from certain countries for certain amounts of time, well, damn it, we have to do it. Because I've been through this before.
We're going to have to leave it there.
I support that. I agree with you.
Martha. I agree if it's said like that.
We all
because
agree.
It was not put that way. That's the problem. Is because he did not put it that way. He said exactly how he felt from the beginning. Ban all Muslims. Yes, he did.
Meanwhile, all right, I got to jump in. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much. I really want to thank all of you for being here today. Great conversation, and we will do it again. Thank you, everybody, for being with us tonight. We'll be right back with more from the first 100 days.